Hey, welcome to Hexed Encountered. My name is Joe. Today I'm going to be doing a first look at a game I just received. I backed it in Kickstarter. It is Stuka Leader from Dan Verssen Games. And this is the latest in a growing and fairly long line now of leader games with actually more to come. But I went whole hog on this one. The full load as you might say, and got all the expansions as well. So we have the base game, and I have 7 expansions as well that we'll look at real quick. So this is just, basic first look. We'll look at the game. If you're familiar with the Leader series, this one obviously will follow in the footsteps of those that preceded it. But there are some new things that have been added by designer Chuck Siegert. So let's first look at the box, right? So it's a nice, thick, fat, heavy box. This thing's heavy. Look, I mean, it's heavy. So there's a lot in here. I have not actually looked inside the box yet. I did peel the shrink wrap off rather than have you guys see me do it. So that's all I've done, though. I have not looked inside here. So this is the back of the box, obviously. It says, it's a little, I find this amusing. It says over 250 cards, okay. But at least 10 counter sheets, so there might be more than 10. Well, and there may be 10 in here, and they're not counting the, probably 15 or 14, 15, whatever it might be inside the expansions here. But, you are placed in command of a group of German pilots and aircraft in World War II. Your group will include fighter aircraft such as the Me-109 and Focke-Wulf 190. You will also have bombers like the Ju-88 and the He-111. The star of the show, though, of course, is the Ju-87 Stuka. So, one thing I noticed the other day when I was looking and trying to figure out when I might get my my Kickstarter game here, I noticed that I was backer number 86. So I missed by one being backer 87 for a game on the Ju-87 Stuka. One of those little things that I find amusing. Anyway, this is a solitaire game if you're not familiar with the series. So one player, ages 14 and up, says 60 to 90 minutes. In theory, that's probably true for a mission or two, but, to play a whole campaign, depending on the length of the campaign, might take you longer than that. There's also a ton, and I mean a ton of game here, especially when you have the add-ons. So let's take a look and see what's inside this enormous box here. Okay, so we have our rule book. Looks like it weighs in at least 51 pages here. But, it's fairly standard. And I know that, some of the guys at DVG, Chuck himself and Dennis Sisson, have done videos on the game. So you don't have to rely on guys like me who are just, basically players of the game, as opposed to the guys who actually, work for the company or are the designer. But anyway, you can see the nice list of the components here. This is new. The bogey is a new thing where basically you draw bogeys, but you don't know necessarily what they are until you actually run up against them in battle. Campaign sheets, etc., tactical display, pilot cards, target cards. So this is a card game. Card-driven game. I don't know that I would say it's card-driven. It's really not, but it is a game with a lot of cards in it, as well as a lot of counters. So yeah, this is if you're familiar with the Leader series, you know what I'm talking about. If not, then once I start doing some playthrough stuff, you'll be able to see all this in action. Campaign setup. So the campaigns are kind of the core of the gameplay itself. They're typically short, medium, long in terms of length. You'll have a certain number of days, and on those days you will fly missions. You'll have pilot cards that will be in one of various levels of experience and skill. And you're able to purchase things like skill. There's also fuel in this game that you'll have to keep track of. So here's an example of a campaign sheet for the Battle of Britain campaign. You can see short, medium, long, etc. We have a player log. This will also tell you what aircraft are available for the scenario. All of these numbers on here are correspond to a target card. So this will be a card that will have a target on it, and the targets will be various types. It could be a naval vessel. It could be a supply dump. It could be a headquarters. It could be a military unit like like tanks or whatever. Just a wide variety of anything that the Luftwaffe or any other air force in World War II may have been attacking, as part of a campaign. What weapons you can use if they're special, because each aircraft card will have things that it can carry. So the ordnance it can carry, basically. And then you'll have victory points based on the length of your campaign and how many victory points you achieved over the course of it. It tells you here how many SO, that's special operation points, you get, which is kind of the currency of the game, where you buy things like skills and upgrades and even fuel and munitions. Those are the munitions and the fuel are probably the main things, but you can also use them to buy additional abilities and so on for your pilots themselves. So you get a certain amount based on how long the campaign is, how long you're playing. Then there's tracks down here for recon and intel, and once we go into a gameplay, I'll talk a little bit more about this. But basically, it's a track that will move, hopefully, right to left as you go along in the campaign. Because as you go to the right, I said right to left, I meant left to right. It goes this way. So as you go in this direction, you'll see you get -2 sight, -1 bogey, etc., things like that. You're seeing less opposition because you're progressing in the campaign, and as you go further right, you're basically winning, essentially, is what that kind of reflects. And all this stuff is all pretty much the same as you would see in some of the older leader games like Phantom Leader or IAF Leader or anything like that. Sequence of play, we'll talk about that obviously when we do a playthrough, and then you go from here to a description of what all of that means, right? Pre-flight, draw target cards. Pre-flight, draw target cards. So this is kind of the somewhat standard layout of a Leader Series rule book. You do see like the bogey stuff that I mentioned is a new thing that Chuck has introduced to the series. So as the series has gone along, and there have been various people who have designed games in the series, they all add their own little twists and nuances and improvements, etc., etc. And plus you have the various themes that will dictate to some extent what you need to do, because obviously something like Stuka Leader is not going to be the same as something like Spruance Leader, which is a naval game. So, so this is the rule book. I don't want to babble on too long. We're already kind of long here. Here's our tactical display. So this is basically your game board. And up top here, you'll have your supplies, which is where you hold your SO points. You'll have a fuel dump where you hold your fuel points. There's a medic in the game, then you'll put those up here. You have your target and event decks, so you'll draw cards for your events on each mission, and you'll draw target cards depending on where you are in your campaign. You'll get a variable number that you can pick and choose which ones you're going to hit. Another thing that's new to the series is on the campaign card, and actually, you know what, I'll talk about that when we get to the campaign cards. You have your sequence over here. You have your target cost. This is what I was actually going to mention. So the green circle targets don't cost any fuel or stress. So that's kind of nice, because stress, again, the key, this is a core component of the Leader series, is your stress. Stress on your pilots in this case can degrade their performance, of course. So you have the green circle targets don't cost anything. The yellow circles will cost you 1 fuel and 1 stress, and the reds will cost you 2 and 2. So basically that's, dependent on like maybe distance and maybe difficulty and some combination thereof. So that, I believe, is also a new feature to the series. And then we have our tactical display. Your target will go in the middle. You'll have various approaches that will have either or either and, I guess. You'll have either bandits and sights, or bandits or sights, or bandits and sights, or one or the other, right? And they'll be located in these areas and in the center as well. So you'll have to kind of make your way through that to get to your target and then attack the target. All right, what else we have in here? Here's a pilot log. So you get one. I know you can download it in various places, DVG website, BGG, etc. If you, for whatever reason, you can make copies of this, or you can just download it and print it, whatever. Depends on what your situation is, but you'll write in your campaign, the length, how many days it is. Then your missions, you can list your target numbers, and then basically you will put what happens in here for pilot stress. You'll list your pilots here. There's a place for notes, how many SO points you have used, remaining target status, and victory points. So this, again, is something you'll see in every single leader game. So these are other target cards, which is kind of cool. And this was, I believe, stretch goals from the Kickstarter. So we have one here. This appears to be kind of snowy. They're two-sided too. So here we have a naval one. We have more of a city and kind of like a beach. And we have kind of a wilderness, maybe Russian winter area here. Another city. There's a lot of these. Got this. This is pretty cool. There are a lot of these. I didn't realize we had so many. But yeah, there are a whole bunch. Look at that, the channel. And more stuff here. So that very nice. The Kickstarter campaign was pretty successful. There were a slew of different stretch goals achieved there. Here are our core campaigns, of which there are many. We have Total War. These are only one-sided. Grand Eastern. So these are kind of big campaigns. And again, I haven't really looked through everything before. This is the first time I'm seeing these as well. Grand Mediterranean. Okay, so here are some player aids. So a key for the skills. Again, this is kind of standard for the series. But the skills themselves change from game to game. So you'll have a list of all the games. And I think it's kind of cool. I know all along, as Chuck has been posting things during the Kickstarter campaign and after, kind of keeping us up to date on the project itself, he's had a very kind of historical context kind of flavor, I guess would be a better way, historical flavor to it, and he's put like German in here. So these are all the German words for, and then underneath in parentheses you have in English. So that's kind of cool. Player help sheet. These are our ranks. I know legendary. He mentioned. I watched his videos. He mentions that legendary. When you reach legendary status, you can actually elect to basically kind of retire this guy and take a newbie and get 3 victory points. So depending on where you are in your campaign, that could always be extremely useful. Hit result definitions. Lots of things in here, and then the key terms. So most of these are very, very standard kind of DVG type things. Jagdverband 44, 45. You have expert, which indicates this would be a more difficult campaign. This one has the ME262 in it. So that's kind of cool. Defense of the Fatherland. Obviously, one of the things that is kind of modeled in the game is the degradation of the Luftwaffe over the course of the war. Early war, the Luftwaffe was loaded up with talented pilots. By 1945, a lot of those guys had been killed, captured, etc., out of action. So the skills of the Luftwaffe kind of decline over time. But they do get cool, interesting aircraft like the Me-262 and the 163 and all that stuff. These things that are in here. The Bodenplatte, Normandy, Valiant Defense. So this would be basically defending against the bombers, right? You can see we've got B-25, 26, and B-17s, different aircraft, including the Mustang and the Thunderbolt, as well as Spitfires. Things Titan. So you have things that cover different periods of the war, as you would expect. This is all Western Front, stalemate in the West. This would be the period in 41 where the Battle of Britain had ended and the Germans were starting to look towards the Soviet Union. Battle of Britain, Kanalkampf, which is the fight over the Channel, Dunkirk, France, Fall Weiss, which is the invasion of Poland. And then we have our counter sheet. So let's count. It said about 10, right? So we have 1, and these are our bogeys, right? These are all kind of standard DVG counters. Effects. So you have things like numb legs and oil leak and a bunch of stress counters. Stress down here as well. Allied aircraft. Zeal counters, right? Skills. Oh, and schnapps. Here's munitions, right? We have munitions. We have more munitions. Here are the bogeys. So we have some Soviets here. Some P-11s. I think those are Soviets. Maybe they're Polish. Yeah, whole lot of these. Hurricanes, Spitfires. I just popped one out. They pop out easy. So more Hurricanes. The P-38. P-47, Spitfire, more P-47s. There's the Mustang. Lots of Mustangs. Then we have, these are the German pilots' markers. And you can tell by the aircraft what they're flying. So we have like various types here, right? Everything from 110s to 109s to 262s. They're all in here. And then no sight. So you pull counters out to kind of determine what you're facing. And again, we'll get into the gameplay when I actually do the gameplay. This video is getting pretty long, and we still have more stuff in the box here, and we didn't even get to the expansions yet. So here we have, and these are mounted player aids for the dogfight and the turreted bomber. So this is something that's kind of new to the system, is having to deal with the bombing over the Reich during the war by the Americans and the British, round the clock, daylight and nighttime bombing. So that's kind of neat too. This was a stretch goal. These are used to track fuel and SO points. So it's kind of cool. Some wooden blocks and cylinders. I think the cylinders are fuel, and it's in units of tens and singles. So tens and ones, and then the same with those wooden cubes. I think the light ones are ones and the dark ones are tens, if I remember correctly. And now we have cards, lots and lots of cards. Oh, there's also 2 10-sided dice in Feldgrau. So we have a bunch. These are the event cards, but this here is not an event card. This is a pilot card. This is a JU-87D. This is a Stuka. So this is a Stuka card. You have your pilot's name up here, Escherich. Here we have Pole. That is a TA-152. Wow, you don't see those much. Protz with an ME-410. So again, you're seeing aircraft that, the famous German aircraft everybody knows, right? Stuka, the 109, the Focke-Wulf. These are the famous ones, right? Here's a 109, speaking of it. Riffle and Pole. Schumacher in a 410. Esherick in an JU-87, Blake, and a Riffle again. So the pilots, there are multiple cards per pilot because they skill up, right? They go up in skill. Here we have target cards, and then some other cards. This is not a target card. I'm not actually going to pull these open. Like I mentioned, there's tons of content from DVG itself, from Chuck and from Dennis, showing the various components of the game. So if you did want to see that stuff, you very easily could. And you know what? I might actually... the hell with it. I'm going to do it anyway. We'll look at the expansions real quick. Let me just put all this back in the box. There is a ton of stuff here, and I can tell you right now that with the expansions, there is no way, no chance that stuff is going to fit back, or all this expansion stuff is going to fit in the box. So I will have to figure out what we're going to do with that. So this, as I said, the box is full, as you can see, and I have not punched the counters yet, of course, as you would expect. So this is the base game, and I keep bumping the table, which makes my camera mount shake. So apologies for that. All right, so here are our expansions. Eastern Front 1. You probably noticed in the base game, it's only Western Front. This is Eastern Front. So new campaigns, targets, aircraft, bandits, events. You get more cards as well, as you would expect. So I'm actually popping counters out, just moving this around. Because as I said, the counters in this game, in all of the leader games that I've had, pretty much, the counters pop right out real easily, which is great when you're punching them out to play, but is less useful when you're doing something like this where you're just looking at components. So here are our components. So here's our counter sheet. There is one, right? There are two Eastern Front expansions. So let's look at the campaigns. You get Barbarossa, Stalingrad, and Battle of the Dnieper in 43. So 3 campaigns and 1 sheet, and then a bunch of cards, more targets, of course, and more pilot cards as well. So that would be Eastern Front number 1. Then we have Eastern Front number 2, which is also 1 counter sheet, and it looks like 3 more campaigns. Then we have Mediterranean number 1. So there are 2 Mediterranean as well. So this would cover North Africa and Italy. Well, let's take a look. Let's open up one of each here so that we can take a look. And I ripped my card here, which I guess isn't that big of a deal. But here's our cards, more target cards. And this is an Italian, Pellegrini, flying the MC-202. So with this expansion, you get some non-German Axis forces as well, which you would expect. Mediterranean, you would expect to have the Italians represented. So here we have the Siege of Malta from 1940. So this would be, Italian aircraft, you can see here. Then we have the Germans arrive in 41. In Operation Pedestal 42. So these are basically Malta. So with Mediterranean 1, you're getting Malta, apparently. Mediterranean 2. I'm curious what's in Mediterranean 2. Bags are nice and big. Some bags are small and you have a hard time getting things in and out of them. So here, this is an ME-109F for Eberhardt. More target cards, of course. One more sheet. Then you have, this is North Africa. We have the Allies Advance 42, Assault on Sicily 43, and the Italian campaign. So you get North Africa, Sicily, Italy. In this Mediterranean 2, Then we have the Spanish Civil War. So this will be an interesting one. You'll have early aircraft. You have probably some biplanes and so on in here as well. You have the HE-51 right here and there. I'm not going to open all of these just for time purposes. I'll do videos on all of these, almost certainly. What if? So this will be, what if the war, well, you can see here, new aircraft, the Arado 234, HO 299, the TA 183, and more. You can see there's a Vampire, the British jet, the Meteor, another British jet, the P-80, an American jet. So you can kind of see what you're getting here. This is jet aircraft. So this would be obviously, probably 45, 46 if the war had not ended type of thing. And then number 7 is Aces. And a lot of these fell out as well. So you have Aces in here. Like I said, these counters, they come out pretty easy. So this is going to mainly be, as you can see, historical aces and expert bomber pilots at your disposal. So looking at the pilots, we have Rudel. Rudel was Hans Ulrich Rudel was a famous Stuka pilot. So it's kind of nice to see him in here. Adolf Galland. Yeah, so as you might expect, I'm just pushing these back into their spots. There are, as it says up here, historical aces and so on and so forth. There's a stress counter down here that goes in there. Just looking at the names on here. Those are 2 I recognize right away would be, here's Eric Hartmann. Lutzov. Yeah, there's Molders. Yeah, so they have, a pretty good selection here of the top German and Italian as well pilots from the war. So that's kind of neat. And, I look forward to playing with these guys. They're all legendary, which you would expect. I mean, the fact that I think it's Hans Ulrich Rudel, he lived through the entire war as a Stuka pilot is really impressive, because the Stuka by the end of the war was pretty outdated and very, very susceptible to being shot down wherever it was encountered, whether it was on the Eastern Front or the Western Front. Just because, the opposition had improved so much, and that aircraft was never particularly suited for, being attacked by fighter aircraft, because it's a ground attack. It was a ground attack aircraft, right? It's a dive bomber. So dive bombers in general typically don't do well when they get bounced by fighters. So that is my first look at the game Stuka Leader and its expansions. I know this was kind of long, and I apologize for that, but hopefully you got something out of it. If you are wondering what the game looks like, and sorry I got a little out of focus there. If you're wondering what the game looks like, this hopefully at least will answer that question to some extent. I will be doing playthroughs of this. I will probably do a review of it as well, so look forward to that in the coming days/weeks, maybe, depending on how long it takes me to do it. Looking at Chuck's videos on the gameplay and stuff, it doesn't seem like it's overly complicated for someone who's played the Leader series before, which I have. So hopefully I can get into this pretty easily and start doing some content for it. So look forward to that in the upcoming days and weeks, as I mentioned. So for now, I am going to sign off. Thank you for watching. Please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, etc., etc. Ring the bell if you're a subscriber so you get notified when I make new videos and all that good stuff. I appreciate the support. Thank you, as always, for watching. My name is Joe. This has been Hexed Encountered, and until next time, happy gaming.